Bonjour French 203 students, bienvenue au vidéo 8 du chapitre 7. Welcome to video 8 of chapter 7. And we're moving right along with les verbes réfléchis et réciproques, but this time we're going to touch a little bit on these verbs in the form of l'imparfait. So we looked at a lot of passé composé last time. Well, I'll kind of backtrack on that slide that we looked at in the last video, in video 7. So we looked at the verb se lever, and we looked at all the different forms that we use to conjugate this verb using the passé composé. So meaning to get up basically at one moment in the past. So je me suis levé, I got up. Or vous vous êtes levé, you got up. Or you as a group got up. Or elles se sont levées, they got up, a group of girls got up. It basically happened at one moment in time, and that's the way we can think of passé composé for the most part in French. Okay, so moving on to look at this same verb in the imparfait, or the imperfect. And I think a good way to think about this distinction is passé composé literally translates to composed past. And it's formed of the two different parts of the verb, of the helping verb with avoir or être, depending on the type of verb we're dealing with. Or sometimes, or most of the time, it's with a form of the verb avoir, to have. We do this in English too. We make our equivalent of the passé composé, the present perfect, using the helping verb have, like I have gone there or she has done that, though it's a pretty similar process actually. We also use the verb to be to form as a helping verb with some tenses too, like I am going there. So I would use it with a present continuous, an ing form kind of verb. Okay, but when we're talking about the imparfait, here's where things can get a little fuzzy. And this was always one of the hardest things for me to learn in French, and even studying Spanish or Italian, because I've had the chance to learn some of those languages too. There's the same distinction between a passé composé and an imparfait. In Spanish, it's like the imperfect and the preterite. So we don't have this difference in English, and it can be a really fuzzy distinction. I like to think of imparfait as imperfect. And if you think of this word imperfect, it's basically like there's no defined time for this verb. It's something that happened in the past. It was going on for a while, or maybe it was a habit that continued for a while, or it's a verb in the past that's kind of setting the scene or describing something that was sort of happening at no really exact defined time. So I think if you think of imparfait in that way, it kind of helps a little bit. It helps to make that distinction between passé composé, which happened at one distinct time, and imparfait that can be kind of extended or sort of a fuzzy description of something going on in the past. Okay, so I can also conjugate the verb se lever using the imparfait. So instead of saying, je me suis levé, like we saw up here, where it has the several parts of the verb, now I'm just taking je me lève, the root of that or the stem of that verb, and I'm adding on the imparfait endings. So now I have je me levais, tu te levais, ils, elles, on se levait, nous, nous levions, vous, vous leviez, il, elle se levait. And I think you could just translate this as I was getting up, or I used to get up. So maybe you could say quand j'étais jeune, when I was young. J'étais is also a form of the imparfait. In fact, I can even write this as a sentence here. So I can say, put it in a different color. Quand j'étais jeune, je me levais tôt tous les jours. Okay, that fit just nicely in there. Oh, quand j'étais jeune, when I was young, so I'm describing kind of an ongoing thing in the past. I was young for an extended period of time. It didn't happen on just one day. Okay. Je me levais tôt tous les jours. So every day, it was like a continuous thing that I was doing all the time when I was young. So this is a good example of using the imparfait in both of those cases. Okay, so here's all of the ways that I can conjugate that using all the different pronouns. Of course, I can make it negative too. So I can say instead of je me levais, I can put ne and pas around that reflexive verb. So, je ne me levais pas. Tu ne te levais pas. Il, elle, on ne se levait pas. Nous ne nous levions pas. Nous ne vous, or vous ne vous leviez pas. Il, elle ne se levait pas. Okay, so if you just remember in your mind that ne and pas surround that reflexive verb, even when it's conjugated. Okay, so a little bit more explanation is given here of the distinction between these, between these two tenses. Let me just try and move this a little bit here. It doesn't seem to want to cooperate with me. Okay, I have to go the other way. All right, so reprise de l'usage du passé composé et de l'imparfait. All right, so what does reprise mean? Prise is kind of like a form of the verb prendre, like a past tense of prendre. So reprise would mean like to retake. In other words, this word means review. So reprise de l'usage, we're going to review the usage of passé composé and imparfait. Okay, so just like I was mentioning before, you use the imparfait to tell what things were like in general or what was going on when something else happened. Okay, so just like I was saying, it's sort of imperfect. There's no specific defined time when this thing happened. It was just sort of going on in the past for an extended time, or it was a habit, or it's basically like a description. Okay, the passé composé, par contre, on the other hand, tells what happened on specific occasions, or if you're telling about a sequence of events. So notice with this sentence, ce matin, this morning, I'm talking about a very specific occasion, which is today, this morning. Je me suis levé à 6 heures. And that describes my morning perfectly. Actually, that's exactly what did happen today. Je me suis levé à 6 heures. Okay, but it was this morning. In the next sentence, we have a different situation. Okay, quand j'étais au lycée, when I was in high school, lycée is high school, je me levais à 7 heures. Okay, so when I was in high school, I got up every day. It was my habit, à 7 heures. Okay, so it's pretty easy to see the difference with these two sentences. Okay, I thought it might also be useful just to take a quick look at an exercise that I found. We can look at just the first few sentences here and see if we can decide which form of the verb would best fit in the blank. These are not reflexive verbs, and that's fine. We're just practicing, kind of remembering the difference between passé composé and imparfait. So in this first sentence, it says, il y a un mois, je ai décidé de partir en voyage. Okay, so il y a un mois. Il y a in this case means ago. So 1 month ago. What would you guess the right answer would be here? Would it be passé composé? Would it be imparfait? I'm talking about a specific point in time, right? So my guess is that it would be the passé composé. So we'll put that here and we'll check it in just a minute. Okay, comme mes parents, would it be étaient malades, ils sont restés à la maison. So in this case, let's think about this. Comme in this case means as or because or since. So since my parents were sick, malade, Ils sont restés à la maison. They stayed at home. Okay, so they were sick, right? Am I talking about any specific time frame here? Am I pointing out a specific day, time, or moment in time? Not really. So my guess here is that this is going to be imparfait. So I'm going to put the imparfait form here. Okay. Je suis donc parti seul. I therefore, donc is therefore, parti seul. Therefore I left alone. Le soleil brillait. The sun was shining. Okay, so the sun was shining. This is kind of like a description, right? I'm not really pointing out a specific moment. It's kind of just like a general description. So my guess would be that this is an imperfect form. Oh, so le soleil brillait quand, okay, I took the train. So here's a time word that points out a specific action that I took while the sun was shining. So this is probably a good clue that we have a situation where one activity is ongoing in the background and I did another activity at one moment in time while that other thing was happening. So my guess would be that this is passé composé. J'ai pris le train. Okay. And j'avais choisi une ville en Pologne. So I had chosen. Okay, so this is another verb tense that is the equivalent of I had chosen. A city in Poland. La ville semblait or semblait vide, seemed empty. Vide is empty. So I'm describing the city, giving it a general description. I'm guessing this is going to be imparfait. I'm not describing something that happened at a specific moment. Okay, la ville semblait vide, tout restait silencieux. I'm guessing this is going to be imparfait also because I'm giving this kind of general description of this place, of this city. Okay, and finally, le plan de la ville, okay, a été in passé composé or était in imparfait, illisible, it means unreadable. Je me sentais seul. So the plan of the city was unreadable, illegible. I felt alone. Je me sentais seul. Le plan de la ville, again, I'm kind of just describing the situation, maybe the frustration that I felt. So I'm going to say était. Oops. Okay, so if you can kind of see the difference, j'ai décidé is talking about a specific moment in time. Il y a un mois. Hey, where else did I use the passé composé? J'ai pris. Okay, because I talked about catching the train while the sun was shining in the background. Okay, and all the other verbs you see here are all in the imparfait because they're all basically describing something that's like a general description or something happening in the background or kind of setting the scene of a story, so to say. Okay, so that just kind of gave you a little refresher on imparfait and passé composé in case you haven't seen it for a while. And like I know from my own experience, these are not the easiest to learn. It takes time to get used to them and to sort of get a feel for which one sounds right in which situation. So I hope this was a helpful review. We have just one more video lesson before we take the first test of our semester for Chapter 7. And any questions or concerns that you have, please let me know. I'll be glad to help. Au revoir.